can all have fun. And if you do have any questions along the way, please don't hesitate to ask me. Okay, cool. So I will be just turning the boat around here, guys, so I'm facing the right way. Don't worry, it is meant to happen. It's not just me completely messing up.
Oh, lilies.
Nearly lost my power there. Okay, remember to duck your head too, guys. Should be alright. It's usually me that only has to remember.
That'll look.
The hair's going to touch it. No, it's not. It's a good guide, that, when you're going under the bridge.
So, you may notice that the part of the river we're on right now is very narrow and for the most part quite shallow. This is because we're not actually currently on the natural river Stour. This part of the river was dug around 1,000 years ago by the Saxons, and they dug it to drain the city and mainly to provide water. Unfortunately though, this stretch of river also became the biggest source of waste disposal for the local people, who would have dumped all their waste, rubbish and sewage in the river. As you can imagine, that wouldn't have made it the most pleasant smelling river at the time. Certainly not somewhere you'd want to live too close to. Thankfully for us today, as you can see, and more importantly smell, it is rather more pleasant today. So this building that we're approaching up ahead of us is the East Bridge Hospital. It was originally a 12th century building, founded in the year 1180 by a gentleman by the name of Edward Fitzgerald. And the first person to live here in the East Bridge Hospital was a gentleman named Ralph. Now Ralph was the nephew of the murdered Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Becket, who was murdered on the steps of the cathedral not 10 years before this building was built. But the East Bridge Hospital was never a hospital in the traditional sense of the word. It comes from the Latin word hospitale, which means hospitality. As the East Bridge Hospital was originally a place where pilgrims would stay free of charge, where they would get a free bed and a free meal for the night. Of course, most of these pilgrims would have been visiting the shrine of Thomas Becket at the cathedral. So what we're now underneath is the oldest working road bridge in the country, the King's Bridge. It was built back in the 13th century, and up until 1965 it did carry the main road from Dover to London, the A2, which went right through the heart of the city centre. So thankfully for us today, there are now ring roads to bring it around the city. Yes, well, I can't make allowances for some of the things that are hanging down off the ceiling, unfortunately. You just have to make sure you watch out for them. So as you can see here, it does get a little bit tight, so please remember to keep your hands inside the boat. Trust me, you don't know what creepy crawlies are lurking in this tunnel. But I can tell you that if you are scared of bats or spiders, it's probably best that you don't look up.
I don't mind spiders.
I will look down because...
Yeah, just keep your mouth shut.
Look down.
So what we're now heading through, this is the only mill stream left in the city today. What originally stood above us here was the first water mill built along this stretch of the river, and that was in the year 1144, the King's Mill. Of course, as it is today, we are now heading directly underneath Canterbury High Street, and we're currently going underneath the Italian restaurant Ask as we speak. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but we do ghost tours as well. As you can imagine, this is a fairly popular destination for a ghost tour. All you have to do is float down here, wait for a few pigeons to fly out, everyone screams, and that's pretty much job done. And if that doesn't work, I usually like to wait till it gets very quiet and then slam my pole down. That usually wakes everyone up. Remember to duck down here, guys. Trust me, I come out with cobwebs in my hair pretty much daily under this bridge.
Yeah, you can laugh, you haven't been through it yet. Oh, there we go. Something pleasant to look at.
Fascinating.
So we survived the tunnel, happy days. The Kentish people. It's a modern translation, of course. I'm sure you've all guessed by now that that is the Marlow Theatre. So when we do have a lot of heavy rain, the council will just open a number of these gates to increase the flow of water further downstream, which prevents flooding for these lovely houses next to the river. Unfortunately, a lot of people who live next to the River Stour are not so fortunate. See some moorhens off to the right there. There's some lovely moorhen chicks in the reeds somewhere as well. They've got a nest. Yeah, there's probably, it's a younger one anyway. So if you look up ahead of us, you may notice we're approaching a very small bridge. You probably think he's never going to get the boat under that bridge. You may well be right. Even if I was successful, I do have to warn you there's a 6-foot drop on the other side. I'm fairly certain that everyone here would prefer it if I didn't attempt to do this. For a few extra quid though, I am willing to give it a try. Seeing as I haven't heard any offers, we'll turn around. If you change your minds, please don't hesitate to let me know. Just be careful, we might get a bit close to the sides here. And there are some stinging nettles there, so watch out for that. And the building on my left-hand side, the Blackfriars used as their refectory, or their dining hall, where they ate, where they would have eaten. Slightly less sophisticated. Oh, I just realised they've got the names of all of King Henry VIII's wives on the back of their boats. So, you may notice just up above that boat there, there's a rather odd looking wooden object hanging out over the river. And that was once known as a ducking stool. And this was a punishment that would have been reserved only for women. So it is said that if you were suspected of being a witch, you would find yourself wrapped in chains and strapped into that very chair there, where you'd be repeatedly dumped into the river. You'd be held under the water for a good few minutes at a time.
Ah,
You want half?
no thanks.
Good.